Hello, what is going on, everybody? Hope everyone is good. Happy New Year. I hope everyone is safe in this brand new year. It is Wednesday, January 1st. This is the walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Just breaking it down. What the heck happened in Orlando yesterday? This is a Citrus Bowl safe space, so we'll get to all that. Did the bowl game give us a sneak peek at next year's team? What will that look like? And how big of a problem is Nick Eamon-Warry's mid-game opt-out? Is that a thing to be concerned about moving forward? All that, plus a little bit of a basketball update right after the intro. Welcome into it. Happy New Year, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to it, everybody. South Carolina drops a heartbreaker to Illinois in the Citrus Bowl 21-17. Pretty chippy game, to say the least. Pretty, high energy bowl game, to say the least as well. But yeah, again, welcome into the walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. But yeah, heck of a Citrus Bowl, Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Certainly didn't wake up feeling the cheesiest this morning, but here we are breaking it all down. So not necessarily as good of a football game as you would have hoped on South Carolina's side. Made a lot of mistakes, but all in all, good football game. Tight to the end. So a lot of good stuff that came from that bowl game. But I mean, this is largely a game that South Carolina wants to forget. Not being able to get the job done, but there were a lot of portions in this game, right? And you talk about the main story here being Brett Bielema versus Shane Beamer, and let's get into that a little bit here too. But I think it was a chippy game. Both teams were on edge, and both head coaches stood up for their guys in the moment, which was awesome. No matter Bielema obviously acting a little bit more childish than Beamer on that side, but these coaches are standing up for their guys, and what they got tangled up in, or what Bielema was arguing that they got tangled up in, was the little wrinkles in the rules, right? You heard him talk. If you guys were watching the broadcast, I don't know who was there or whatnot, but from the broadcast point, because I'm still currently back in the Midwest, but they kept mentioning that like it was little things in the rules, and Bielema was fired up. What he was ultimately fired up about was the reverse on the return, because apparently in the Big Ten, that's a fair catch. I don't know. I've never seen that before in the Big Ten, like anywhere really. That being like throwing both arms out, I'm contained a little bit here, but I think I don't see a world where that's a fair catch. So that's what Bielema is arguing that he was doing, like he was fired up about, was the fair catch ruling, and then South Carolina got the reverse and got a big chunk of yards on the kickoff. What I think was going down was, Bielema was obviously, very frustrated and slowing the game down from a perspective of, the substitutions, right? It's something you look at, they've done all year. It was kind of their crutch or their way into, slowing the game down. You look at where South Carolina struggled all year, basically. This football team, it's when games and possessions are limited. Right. And so you have less opportunities to get the explosive plays on offense. You have less of an opportunity to, be able to, run the football effectively and just score. I mean, because you look at how fast paced Carolina likes to, especially as of late with Norris and everything, they will get set and then try to get you with bad personnel. And so the refs did not do a very good job of, with dealing with Illinois substitutes, right? The late substitutes that were eating into the play clock. There's nothing South Carolina can do about that, right? There's nothing that they can do about Illinois subbing late. And if they get a delayed game because of it, that's on Illinois. So that needs to change, number one. And Illinois apparently has done that all year. That's been their MO, is subbing late. If you sub against Brett Bielema, he's going to send his guys in late. He's going to send them trotting, right? It's going to be a long walk or a long run back to the bench. These guys are coming from one side of the field and taking the longest angle to the sidelines they can. They're not in any rush to get off the field, which is ultimately what led to Bielema, giving Shane the substitution thing, or so Shane thought it was. And I mean, as do I. I think it was the substitution and the taunting and all that. And I mean, everyone's talking about when Bielema came over to the South Carolina sidelines, like, first off, like, go check on your player, man. Like, I mean, I guess he looked to see if he was all right, but he was getting up and he was all right. But then Bielema used that time, instead of going rally your team, he decided to use it to taunt another one. So I mean, I get Shane's frustration. Shout out to Luke Day for being the greatest hold me back guy of all time. You obviously want your strength coach in that situation, keeping your head coach from doing something stupid. But I don't know, classless from Brett Bielema in that moment, right? You would think he would check on his player, and then eventually, I mean, everyone's seen the clips. I didn't want to pull it because I didn't want to necessarily find all of them, but there are plenty of examples in that game, as well, as I'm sure everyone saw it. Everyone with eyes saw it when the Illinois players started to do the Ole Miss tendency, right, where you look to the sideline and yeah, okay, and then their knee just cramping up or something like that. So I don't know how you fix it. You need to. Shout out to my guy Zach, famously Garnet, for pointing it out. Is like, college football isn't going to die by all this NIL and all this stuff. No, it's going to die because of guys slowing the game, finding the little wrinkles and everything. I don't know why you can't have a cohesive rule book. And like the announcers were talking about it, Quinn Kesnick was talking about it. And like they're like it's the little things in the rule book, like the fair catch thing, right? Like, I don't know how putting your arms out is a fair catch in the Big Ten. I don't know. I really don't understand that. But again, it's a little rule thing, and maybe it is in the Big Ten, right? But it doesn't translate from conference to conference. And Shane said he got it approved before the game as well. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, you just gotta adapt with it. But I don't know. There needs to be a universal set of rules in college football. So the injury thing, right? I looked at, obviously there's an embellishment penalty. It doesn't get called off. They've got it in hockey too. It's pretty standard. But embellishment is the rule, I guess, by the law is like it's for faking being fouled, right? Add one for injuries, right? Add one for injuries. If you see a guy who is taking a couple steps back towards the huddle, and then you see him go down 15 yards, give him 10, 15 yards or something like that. Like, I don't understand why this is continued or allowed to continue to go on in today's day and age, in today's game. Like, it's so stupid, and it drains the clock. I mean, and guys will come off, and the rule is if you go off for an injury, it's one play, right? I'm sure the guy, like, pick whatever guy needs a breather, tell him to go down, right? And then he's in the next play. Like, I don't get it. There needs to be a rule in place for, teams. If you go out, you got to stay on the sidelines for a certain amount. You got to fix it. I mean, Ole Miss was able to drain the clock out, drain the energy, drain all the momentum out against South Carolina earlier in the year. We saw how that happened, right? So, I mean, and not a lot, nobody's going to like me saying this, but you kind of have to give Brett Bielema his flowers a little bit too. Like, yes, he was kind of a jackwagon, whatever. Like, I don't have a bleep button on me right now, so I don't want to say anything they could get me in trouble here. But I think as much as Brett Bielema acted a fool, his game plan was smart. I mean, you looked at where South Carolina struggled. Missouri controls limits possessions by running the football, right? And they gave South Carolina one of the toughest games of the year. You look at where Ole Miss had success. They had 17 guys on the injured list, and that leads to guys that potentially are going down, right? And goes to the age-old Ole Miss where it's like, well, yeah, okay, and then right, like, go down. So it's cancer in college football right now. But again, it was Brett Bielema's way of limiting possessions. So hat tip to him in that regard, right? He saw what worked against South Carolina, and I guess from a South Carolina perspective, how do you stop that, right? You just got to stop getting out of your own way on offense, right? Though you have to execute when the possessions get slimmed down, right? It's less higher throws, and everything has a magnifying glass on it when there's less possessions. So there's a lot, obviously, with this bowl game and everything, but I think ultimately, like it's one that South Carolina's going to want to forget. Put up a good fight. Probably should have won that football game. You were dominating most of the game. And then obviously there's something we need to talk about with Nick Eamon-Warry as well. I'm going to get to it as I'm getting through some of these comments. Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Appreciate all the New Year's wishes in the comments. But yeah, Craig, did we throw it long more than once? A couple times, but the receiving core wasn't there. You didn't really have a chance. And again, with limited possessions, the shot plays, you see a lot less of them because teams aren't willing to risk going for it, right? And when you have limited downs, I guess when you limit possessions, you limit downs. But I mean, by logic of it, you tend to take less shots. There are less shots downfield. So I don't know. I think, the throwing the ball downfield and being aggressive offensively was just because they were limiting possessions. And then I've seen a lot of stuff about this fan or around this fan base about Mike Shula holding back Lenoris a little bit. Like, I understand it. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I get that you were holding Lenoris back. I mean, maybe you were holding Lenoris back. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. But I understand it if you were, right? Because you look at that game as a whole yesterday, right? It was chippy from the first quarter. After the roughing the returner call with Juju McDowell, right? It was chippy from that. I mean, even from Dylan Stewart. It was like one of the first series comes off, a little bit into the game, energized, and you want to see that from Dylan. I think that's how he plays. He needs to have a chip on his shoulder to get going. But yeah, all around Carolina Titan making it known, all around just a weird game. Absolutely. It's just one of those things. And EXO making a good point here. The coach gave me Lane Kiffin energy. Brett Bielema, I grew up obviously in South Bend, so I'm well familiar with Brett Bielema being in the Big Ten and it's just all around football. But having the most success at Wisconsin, and I don't know, he's just very Lane Kiffin-y. EXO, and I just he reminded me of Kurt Signetti. That whole game just felt like something Kurt Signetti would do, right? The taunting and all of that gave me Kurt Signetti vibes. Something that the coach that would go out and get some camera time for himself before the college football playoff game, leave his team in the locker room, go get your camera, right? Same energy from Brett Bielema, right? And I don't get it. I think it stems from the Big Ten, just wanting to try to get up at the SEC, trying to create a name for themselves, or maybe they're just sick and tired of hearing about how the SEC is better. And I mean, go to any SEC football game compared to a Big Ten one, I think you're still going to understand why. But granted, Big Ten is getting there. Craig makes a good point here. Tackling was the worst of the season. I think, obviously, in the second half, a large part of that is because of Nick Eamon-Warry being absent. And I'm going to get to that because, I'm not necessarily a fan. I'm not going to bury the kid necessarily because everyone makes a choice. He's still really young, did a lot for this program, one of your best, safeties, and continues a long line of talented defensive backs in Torian Gray's, career at South Carolina, short career at South Carolina. But, I'm going to get to Eamon-Warry here. But, I mean, you look at who's shining in this game. I got to hat tip to Oscar Attaway, too, right? We know his dad. His dad's a legend, usually chimes in on some of these shows. But, Oscar was playing he rolled his ankle before the bowl game, right? Shows you some toughness there. I asked his pops, I'm like, hey, what's that ankle look like? And this was post-game. I asked him before the game. He's like, ankle's swollen, but he's off his feet. He's rested. So that's good. But hat tip to Oscar. I mean, getting the job done. He was in the right place at the right time. When Josh Simon fumbled the football, I believe it was Simon fumbled the football. Had super duper heads up play there from Oscar. It stinks that, this performance came in a loss, but Oscar finished the day 14 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. And then you also factor in 7 catches for 37 yards and a long of 9. So imagine if he breaks one, right? So Oscar Attaway certainly, obviously a hat tip here, but I think he gives you a lot of faith, about what this room should look like going forward next year. You obviously hope he sticks around. I know, everything from their camp so far has been that they want to stick around. They want to be the next, starting running back, the next number one back at South Carolina. And, I think it also affords the opportunity to bring along DeWarren Howell, right? I liked Howell's game yesterday. Yes, he had the fumble, right? The costly fumble that, wasn't letting him touch the ball for nearly the rest of the game. But, I think Howell looks good. Minus the fumble, 5 carries, 31 yards, along with 15, was able to break one. So next year, right, I think it should excite this fan base that, you're going to have Jawarn Howell and hopefully Oscar Attaway. I would think, knock on wood, we do that a lot here, that everything gets squared away on the Garnet Trust side, and that they, make sure Oscar's a happy man going into next season. But, you weren't able to get Justice Haynes. Michigan decided to lay down a boatload of money for that kid. Right now you're looking at Oscar Attaway, who put together his best performance of the season on a rolled ankle. It shows you toughness. That shows you team guy. And again, we're going to talk about Nick Eamon-Wari here. I'm not going to rip the kid to shreds, but I certainly don't agree with the choice to opt out at halftime. But, it's just one of those things. Oscar Attaway, looks good. Lenoir's looks good, not great. 24 of 34, 260 yards and a touchdown, no picks. Big for Lenoir again, staying off of, the turnovers. So good stuff from the QB. Missed a couple throws. I think, obviously you want a more cohesive game plan from Mike Shula on that standpoint as well. But, I don't know. I was impressed with the things that I didn't necessarily understand. I did love the adjustment from this, though. The fake punt or the fake kick when Ty Kroger throws it over the top. What are you doing? I don't necessarily understand that play call. I know you do want to fake something, right? But I don't know why you're throwing that to Boogie. Throw it to a tight end. And so they ran something similar. It was, the tight end pop pass, right? Where you just throw it over the top to a big tight end that can catch it. No offense to Boogie, but his hands aren't the best thing in the world. I don't necessarily see Boogie shattering any records at tight end in the NFL in the near future. But I could be wrong. But I do see some talk about Nick Harbor too. Nick dropping that bomb at halftime. Yeah, it's one thing. Nick Harbor's hands have been something that obviously South Carolina fans have been hoping gets better. I think this might be one of the off seasons where it does, right? His speed was still very much on display. He's your leading wide receiver. Josh Simon obviously still led the core in receiving, or still led the team in receiving, but Harbor 4 catches, 61 yards along the 17. The hands just got to get better, but he's developing, right? A little bit longer than he should, but the speed is there. The raw talent is there. You're so close. It's all right there for you. Harbor just needs to develop his hands a little bit more. So, yeah, I agree. So, did want to talk about Nick Eamon-Wari here. I do want to get to a quick commercial break as well. Let's see. Anything else from the game that I did want to talk about? Again, Harbor looked good. Attaway was on a bum ankle. Another thing for Lenoir, I think that he can do better at is they might be calling some designed RPOs, or just ones where they're window dressing, or it's the RPO going one way and then Lenoir just keeps it and it was always a keeper. If that's the case, dress it better. Give one to the running back, or have Lenoir not be so set up on his reads going forward. That was just another thing that I caught during the game that I did want to talk about. But overall, this is a game that you're going to forget, I guess. It's one of those things where, you can't win them all. And then you're going to take, obviously, the momentum of 9-3 into the off season. But I know the new athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, is certainly looking to schedule Illinois in the near future. And I don't know. I think, it'd be kind of cool if you did a Big Ten ACC or Big Ten SEC challenge like they do in basketball. Do 1 week where it's there's a full slate where the SEC and the conference clashes. Maybe eliminate some of that, the rules clashing and getting all mixed up as well. So just another one of those things that could be solved if everybody was on the same page. But clearly in college football, it does not seem like it. I do want to hit. All right, so we're going to take a quick break real quick. And then I do want to talk about Nick Eamon-Wari and then him opting out at halftime and what that all means. Also do want to hit a quick hoops update before we get out of here. So appreciate everyone tuning in. This is a walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Be right back after this break.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barn Dominium Company. where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time.
MidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case.
Nice.
So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Yeah, appreciate all of our sponsors, Resto Pros, Protect with Bear, all the good people and at the Barndominium Co. as well. Appreciate everyone, sponsoring this lovely show for me to go on air and give everyone a Citrus Bowl safe space on this Wednesday, New Year's Day Eve. Nick Eamon-Wari. Let's get down to business about that. What's the story with Eamon-Wari? Tommy asks. Well, Nick Eamon-Wari opted out at halftime, apparently. Shane Beamer in his post-game presser mentioned that he said that it was an internal team matter, right? Internal team matter. Just going to leave it at that. So Nick Eamon-Wari mentioned after Shane's presser that, yes, he opted out at halftime. And I'm not necessarily sure why. Coming from me, at least, I watched what Cam Ward did in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and Cam Ward got crucified online for opting out at halftime, right? Pop-Tarts Bowl was a couple days before this bowl game, obviously. But Cam Ward gets killed online, and draft stock goes down, and right, everyone's saying that this isn't good for him, and he leaves a competitive Pop-Tarts Bowl after throwing 3 touchdowns in the first half, right? You would think that Nick Eamon-Wari might, even if he thought about, like, all right, I'm going to do my job at halftime, and now I'm going to offer a defense for this too, as I do with everything. I like to see both sides on this show. But sticking on the side of what the heck are you doing? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you see what Cam Ward does in the Pop-Tarts Bowl and see how the world reacts to that and think it's a great idea to sit out the second half of this game. I don't necessarily understand it. So, and then my other thing is, like, if you say you're going to play in the game, you play the whole thing. Same thing goes to Cam Ward. These were both competitive football games, really competitive football games. You would think you would want to help out your team. And I'm going to get to a quote from Demetrius Knight. I talked about it on my brand. I posted a little snapshot of what Demetrius Knight said post-game. Okay. To me, what Demetrius Knight said and what Demetrius Knight's attitude towards just the bowl game and extra games in general is how it should be. I'll get to D-Knight. But again, I don't understand how Nick Eamon-Wari sees what happens to Cam Ward and sees how everyone is talking about Cam Ward and says, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's do this. I don't – maybe he didn't see what happened with Cam Ward. I don't know. If everyone's making a good point in the comments, right? If you're afraid of injuries, don't go on the field at all. And now I'm knocking on wood here because anytime we talk about injuries, right? Scary thing. Hopefully they got insurance and everything, or bull insurance. Like and as the Colorado players did, I think it was like $30 million worth of bull insurance if they would have gotten hurt. So I'm struggling to plug this in. Yeah, so I don't know. I really and has anybody really gotten that hurt? Or now I say that, yeah, with precaution of knocking on wood, but has anyone really gotten that hurt during bowl season where it's going to mess up their draft stock? Has anybody seen anybody that's completely? And yes, I know I'm speaking to the choir here because Marcus Lattimore obviously going a little too early, and that wasn't in the bowl game. I don't think necessarily, so I could be wrong there, but I don't necessarily know what one half of football is going to do to Nick Ebenward. But okay, so before I get into what obviously everything Shane said, I put that at the top here, but I do think Nick Ebenward's case for not playing in that second half comes down to this. This game was chippy. I mentioned it at the top of the show. Chippy game, right? Guys are taking shots. Guys are trying to make that, next up, lay the shoulder down on somebody, step up, make that play. Those plays are where guys actually get hurt, right? In chippy games where you don't necessarily know what's going on, everyone's trying to be the man, right? Trying to step up, make the big play, and light a fuel on his team, light a fire on his team, right? Maybe you don't want to play in the second half of the Cheez-It Bowl when it's getting a little too physical. Some stuff can happen in that second half. But to walk out on your team, I don't necessarily understand. This isn't a Shane thing. I think the only thing necessarily that kind of slipped through the cracks with this Nick Ebenward situation is that I don't know if Shane knew that was the plan the whole time, right? And you hope he does, right? And that's why he's trying to keep it as internal because I guarantee you Shane heard from all his circles what Cam Ward doing it was going on. You would hope, right? What happened to Cam Ward and all his draft stock, and we'll see if it actually makes a difference. Cam Ward, very talented player. Nick Ebenward, also another very talented player. We're going to have to see what this means for their draft stock. I don't right now, as of now, it's dropping. Guys are saying they quit on their team. It's not good. Now I'm interested to see how does the fan base feel about this too? I've seen a lot of people that are pissed off about it, but I've also seen people are more pissed off about him. And Tommy makes a good point here too. Either opt out or play the whole game, and I think that's kind of the attitude of everybody with this Nick situation, right? And maybe it was one of those things where the coaching staff advised him not to. And I know this is another situation too where it brings it up. You got to bring this up too. A lot of guys stayed on the roster to continue to collect NIL and to continue to get paid throughout the end of the year. That was said in press conferences. Coaches were talking about that, right? So this goes to the question. It's like, all right, if guys can do this, practice a couple extra weeks in December, collect the bag, and then play half of the bowl game, and when they've got a couple stats in, be like, yeah, I'm good. See ya. I got my bag. I got paid these last couple of weeks. Comes into question. It's the same thing that Juice Wells and all of these guaranteed money and all these signing bonuses where these guys transfer out a year later and don't play right goes into the same category, I think. And I don't know if I'm going to say this too. I don't know if Nick knew what his actions would hold here, or what reaction his actions would warrant here, but I don't know if it's what he was necessarily expecting with all of this. So EXO making a good point. If you get it for a running back like Rocket, who's been having serious injuries, but Nick, somebody who hasn't. Yeah, Nick doesn't really play the game necessarily where he's getting all that hurt too necessarily. But again, I'm not, and I'm not trying to rip the kid apart. People make mistakes. I don't know. And again, I said it. I don't know if Nick thought this one through necessarily. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe he didn't think that the fan base would react the way that they would. But yes, Tommy makes another good point here. More disappointed than angry. And I think that's how it is, right? This kid coming from Irmo is one of the best players in your program's history. Going to leave as a junior, going to make a lot of money in the NFL and represent your program well, you would hope. And then this happens. So, it leaves a kind of a mark on this game, right? And so, all right, I did want to get to Demetrius Knight because I think on the flip side, I'm talking about Demetrius Knight. Yeah, his Demetrius Knight. I'll pull the quote up. Pulling the quote up. Gonna do it as an overlay. Sorry about the graphics not lining up, but this is the tail end of Demetrius Knight's quote about playing in the bowl game to Alan Cole yesterday. Said, "I hope my teammates saw me put my life and everything I had on the line to try to put us in a position to win. You need a guy like that." Now, here's the full quote from Demetrius Knight. "I think the thing I'll remember about this team is how much we loved each other, how much it was genuine. You can go to different places in your college career, stay at one place, and you won't really feel at home. You won't really feel loved. But here, it's everywhere in the facility. It's indoors. Above all else, love. That's why I chose to come back. It's because I told Oscar Attaway in the locker room a couple minutes ago it would have eaten me alive being back home, seeing the way this game unfolded, knowing I could have helped in some way." And then comes this quote. "I hope my teammates saw me put my life and everything I have on the line to put us in a position to win. But this will help the guys elevate next season." Was the tail end of that. That's how it should be, right? It says a lot about Nick Eamon if he's comfortable leaving his guys in the second half of that game, right? Yes, it's a bowl game. Yes, it's cheesy. Excuse the pun. Yes, it's a cheesy event. Yes, there was a fake wedding, maybe that, whatever. Fake wedding, not so fake wedding. I don't want to ruin the fun, but yes, it is a little cheesy. Yes, it is a meaningless bowl game at the end of it. But you know who it doesn't? Or you know who it isn't meaningless to? It's the guys next to you, the guys that you could have, helped, finish things out. I don't know why Nick Eamon saw the way that first half was going and decided, yeah, I'm good. And then you have players like Demetrius Knight, who, are willing to put everything on the line because of, the guys he sweat next to. He put in everything next to, right? All of the blood, sweat, and tears. And, to get one more opportunity to lace them up with your dogs, right? Like it's so elemental. And it's hard to get guys that can play, that have that kind of mindset, right? Because I'm sure, look at Rudy, right? And now as a Notre Dame fan, Rudy was offsides, and yes, it was. But anyways, you wish that guys had the heart of Demetrius Knight. Every guy on your squad had the heart of Demetrius Knight, and I'm sure it goes. Debo Williams the same way. You think Debo Williams was going to opt out halfway through that game? No. Maybe he was, I could be wrong, but Debo Williams, he's not opting out the second half of that game. D Knight's not, clearly. D Knight was, or he hopes his teammates saw him put his life and everything he had on the line for the Cheez-It Bowl. That's awesome, man. That's just how it should be. You do, and you do it for the guys next to you. And by Nick Eamon leaving the guys next to him out to dry in that second half, what does that say about Nick Eamon? And now, again, people like me and people in the media and fans behind a keyboard are going to write him off for the rest, right? And give him a bunch of crap for this. Probably deservedly so, but people make mistakes. But golly, when you have two ends of the spectrum, like the way that Nick Eamon handled this, and also I'll go back to Shane on this too. EXO says, yeah, maybe an agent advised Nick and Ward, maybe, and that's the nature of the game nowadays. That is the nature of the game. Yeah. Carolina Titan, D Knight is a great team player, and that quote shows he would have liked the three that sat out and to play the whole bowl game. Yeah. He was not like those guys. And now, granted, I see Rocket's concern, right? Also, I think it's, kind of cool. Some of those guys are like, yo, let the backup go eat. I think that was Rocket's Kyle Kennard's going to be a first-round pick. He's not making that kind of money from the bowl game. Like, I don't like. I get it. They're in the two cases. The guys that sat out, 3 cases, I guess, that sat out, fine. But even Warry to do it like that, man. Like, what are you thinking? I don't necessarily know. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe he thinks it's a mistake. There's nothing you can do at this point to go back and fix it. So, yeah, kind of stinks. You hope Demetrius Knight will come back, and I believe that was his last college game though. So we'll certainly come back and can make sure that guys are continuing on his legacy and everything with that kind of mentality. But yeah, did want to get back to Shane. Shane said in his presser the Nicky Minori thing was an internal team matter. That's called sticking up for your guys, man. He did it all game. Shane did, right? He wasn't the guy that was taunting his opponent. I think Shane, obviously, he did his best. He was doing the beamer ball with the I guess the thing that's a fair catch in the Big Ten, which I still don't understand why putting your arms out is a fair catch in the Big Ten. Fair catch is always waving. I don't know why that's not one rule. And I'm sure Shane feels the same way about it. But I don't get it. Shane Beamer just showed, as loud and as proud as he was, he will do whatever it takes for his guys. He will stand up for his players, even in the post-game presser. When Nick Eamon-Warry makes the dumb mistake of opting out at halftime, leaving his players out to dry, Shane's still going to stand up for him. Internal team matter. Not going to fill in the blank. Going to let the player make his own decision. I think it's huge. And I think ultimately it is standing up for your guy, right? Saying it's an internal team matter, I guess kind of leads people to believe that it was something bigger. But I don't know. I think it's sticking up for your guy. And it was something Shane Beamer did all game. It was something he did all game. We saw it. From getting held back by Luke Day to, again, in the post-game presser, standing up for Nick Eamon-Warry, not making it a big deal, letting Nick speak for himself. It's big. It's big. I think it goes a long way. And continues to show, Shane Beamer continues to show why he's the right man for this job and also wants to be here, right? This isn't somebody that's, faking getting into it. Like, I don't know if Will Muschamp does that, has that same intensity for his team. Maybe Will does because Will's a fiery dude, right? Maybe Will does. But Shane Beamer was fired up in that game because he cares, because he wants to win. And that's the bottom line. Like, he cares about his players so deeply. And that's, what you need at a place like South Carolina to find success. You can't have, Ohio State giving the same pitch to everybody. I've talked about it with Dylan Stewart. When Dylan went and visited Ohio State, said, cookie cutter, same thing, right? When you have a head coach that's willing to go just about as far as you can in a football game towards the other coach and to stand up for his players, hats off to you. I kind of have to give it to you. Like, and no bias or anything, really. Like, you kind of think that Shane was in the right there. Now, ultimately, like these guys are getting mad over little things in the rules. Like, what are we doing? Football. But ultimately, I think what it was about for Shane Beamer and why I think, certainly in the right in this standpoint, compared to especially the way that Brett Bielema has been handling it. I think that, it's just one of those things where Shane was always standing up for his guys. And that's the thing that I think stands out. Bielema's still Signetti-ing all of it, right? Hey, look at me. Look at how BS this was. Look at, hey. And now right now it's turning into Twitter war, right? They're kind of just going back and forth on Twitter. But yeah, so I don't know. RL Smith chiming in on the Nick Eamon-Warry situation. You already addressed. Might as well play it out. You would think. Jay Diz checking in. Shula needs to quit with the crazy personnel groups. Looked like Shat was back. Just had some players in the game. So just put some players in the game and call some plays. Have the subs running in right after play. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I talked about it, Jay Diz. I think they were kind of holding them back a little bit, and I get it. Same case goes to the one defense I have for Nick Eamon-Warry is a chippy game. You don't want to lose your franchise quarter and franchise, I guess. That's what college football's become. You don't want to lose your school's quarterback for the next 3 years, whatever, in a Cheez It Bowl when you're trying to run him, and let him, lay the shoulder down in the fourth quarter trying to win against Illinois in the Cheez It Bowl. Like, I don't know how far that gets you. So, Jay Diz, I think, maybe that's where that stems from a little bit. You had everyone at wide receiver. Shows you kind of how that position group needs to evolve next year. Mazio Bennett looked good, but you still need to go find a dog, which, from what I've heard, they're not looking as of or super hard for that position group, which I don't understand. Maybe they trust Mike Furry that well. But and then speaking on the wide receivers, there's the other coach, or the coach who wound up at Illinois, is certainly basking in the limelight a little bit too much over there as well. Not really sure where that comes from. And it's just one of those things where, got asked to leave a place for not necessarily doing your job as well. And then, you blame the other place for the results. So I don't know about all that. That's all I'm going to say on that situation again. But yeah, I don't know. It's my closing thoughts on this bowl game, right? It sucks. You're in the position that you are, 21-17. Can't win them all, right? But you were able to win, pretty much win out for the end of your schedule for the South Carolina football team. Should have been in. Sucks that Clemson got in, but got demolished by Texas, who's moving on today as well. And then, so yeah, I don't know where this program goes from here. It's pretty clear, up, right? I think, obviously it's not the way you want to end the season, but it just was the way you did it. But I think, this program is right where it needs to be, though. If you're going to go out like that, you're going to go out fighting for your players and your teammates. Demetrius Knight making a hell of a statement. Shane also making a hell of a statement, post game. Like, he's going to fight for his players till the very end. And that's all that matters. And I think that's all you need to take from this loss is that you've got a head coach in there that's willing to do whatever it takes for his players. And totally unbiased take. Like, I think that's what it takes to win in this day and age. And you hope, that Garnet Trust can make everything happen this offseason. And I have no reason to believe that they won't. But again, I think there's a lot of positivity that can be taken from this, minus the fact that Brett Bielema is Kurt Signetti, trying to be like Kurt Signetti, plain and simple. But yeah, to put a bow on it, you got a lot of guys that looked good in this bowl game. Again, just be like Demetrius Knight. If you're doing a hard thing, stand up for the people that you're doing the hard thing with. Plain and simple, right? It goes for any aspect of life. If you're doing something with a group and it's hard and it stinks, it's not fun, wouldn't you think you want to, lean into the guys around you, lean into the people that make the job a little bit easier? Be like Demetrius Knight. Bring the energy of, I hope my teammates saw me put my life and everything I had on the line to put us in a position to win. Be like that. Because I think that, number one, that's a good teammate, but two, that's just a good person. You just need more people like that in the world that are, that care about the person next to them. And, I think that's certainly a thought. Be like Demetrius Knight in this new year. Plain and simple. All right, so that's enough about the Citrus Bowl. It's been 44 minutes of a Citrus Bowl safe space. Do want to talk about basketball before we close things out. Super long walkthrough tonight, obviously. Going to try to get it back up to an hour. As we normally did over at GC, but with this new year and everything, so good to be back, and obviously Happy New Year's. But before I get into basketball too, before we transition off of football, I do want to send my biggest condolences to everybody down there in New Orleans. Super sad situation developing down there. Just a tragedy before the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, I know certainly the Notre Dame fan base is certainly beat up about it, but yeah, just sending my thoughts and prayers down to New Orleans. If anybody has anybody affected, sending you my thoughts and prayers, going to the grotto, lighting a couple candles for all them down in New Orleans. So please continue to pray, just the tragedy down there, and everything. But that puts a bow on college football talk for the walkthrough. We can get back to it towards the end, but did want to update quickly on basketball before we got out of here. Women's basketball is continuing to roll. Demolished Wofford after a short break, and then just on a shorter break for New Year's. Women's basketball is back in action tomorrow against Missouri. A couple stats for that one. Dawn Staley's 11-5 in SEC openers, 9 wins out of her last 10, which give you a lot of hope. Last season, and this Missouri team hasn't really improved from year to year as well. They bring in a little bit. It's a long road trip. Got to go out all the way to Columbia, Missouri. It's a long trip. But last season, South Carolina won both meetings against Missouri by an average of 31 points. Expectation tomorrow, it's going to be more of the same. Against Wofford, Miriam Dowd and Joyce Edwards shine. Edwards, I think, had 16 in the win. So, she was 7 of 10 from the field. Good stuff from the freshman. Maddie McDaniel was not able to play. The Mouse has been great as well. Hat tip to Maddie McDaniel. Again, I think South Carolina is going to roll in this conference schedule, but certainly against Missouri, they'll roll. But Texas coming up on the 5th. It's a big game. It's an away game. You're in Austin, so we'll see how that one pans out. But again, big couple games up here for Dawn and her squad in this SEC slate. So we'll just have to see how it goes. I think tomorrow, certainly with Mizzou, we'll have more thoughts next week. But it's just one of those things where got to get off to a hot start in SEC play, because as soon as you lower the crown, it's things are going to get off the rails a little bit. So okay, South Carolina the women's team plays at Missouri, at Mississippi State before being home next Thursday against A&M, and then they have Texas, which is also a home game. At Colonial Life Arena, number 5 ranked. So you wait until the second week of January before your first ranked game in the second half is scheduled, but then you follow it up with Alabama. You go on the road, another ranked game. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ranked games in a row for this South Carolina women's squad. It's going to be a gauntlet here towards the tail end of January, and before you dip into February, you don't see another unranked opponent until Auburn February 2nd. So. Starting with Texas January 12th, this schedule is going to get a lot harder. We're going to know, can this team keep it all together in these first 3 SEC games? Are they able to play against SEC quality opponents till the end of it? So I think it's huge, and we'll see. Obviously with Missouri tomorrow at 7 p.m. So big tip for the women's squad, and we'll see. We will see. All right, we'll touch on the men's team before we again put a bow on this whole show. Men's team quickly. 10-3 on the season, which somehow is the last best record in the SEC. Somehow they're ranked last in the SEC at 10-3. Every team in the SEC is 11-2 or better, which is insane. And RL makes a good point. Men's team played with fire against Presbyterian. They pulled it out though. Yeah, you can't get in the habit with this, especially when the SEC is as loaded as it is. It could be a long SEC slate for some of these for Lamont's team if they're not careful. Now, I'm rooting for Lamont, right? I think you want to see him succeed, but if they continue to, again, like RL said, play with fire against good teams, they're going to get run out of them early and often. So you kind of have to just play better, and we'll see how that goes. Again, we're going to get plenty more hoops coverage here as we can keep putting a bow on football, and keep rolling into January and this new year of 2025. But I think Greta says the scorched earth Shane will carry over to 2025. Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. I think this is going to leave a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of these guys, right? Such a young football team that you have at South Carolina, and you look at your wide receiver core, largely built up of freshmen, Asia Bennett, Nick Harbor, a lot of guys coming in as well. Your linebackers just got a whole lot younger with Debo Williams leaving, Okaba leaving, right? Demetrius Knight likely on his way out as well. So this team got a lot younger, but they know exactly how this game is going to felt. Right, they don't like the taste of getting taunted by the opposing head coach and then losing the football game. I don't think anybody does. So yeah, Greta, I couldn't agree more. I think Shane is going to go scorched earth. He's certainly pissed off, right? This team likes to find reasons to get motivated, and Justin King and his squad are going to be cooking up some hype videos just internally, because I know, shout out to Justin King and his squad again. They do some pretty nasty work inside the building as well. It doesn't necessarily get to see the light of day, and that just goes for just motivating the team in general. So probably plenty to work with here with this Illinois game. But again, we probably won't see what they cook up that's petty and kind of scorched earth. But we'll see. I know there's plenty to work with. RL says, how many SEC games will Lamont's team need to go dancing? Estimate. That's a good question. With as packed as it is, I don't know if I'm wrong to say like almost all of them, right? Like I don't necessarily know if I want to put a number on it right now, because it could be wrong. Let me pull up the schedule real quick to see. Just let me go through it real quick. Let's see. Then how many SEC wins do they need to make the tournament? I think you need to beat Mississippi State, which is going to be tough. Starting on Saturday, you need to beat State. I don't know if you're going to beat Auburn. I don't know if you're going to beat Alabama. You need to beat Vanderbilt. So there's 2. Oklahoma probably need to beat. So there's 3. Florida is going to be a tough one. You play Mississippi State twice. I don't know. 1, 4, 8, 16. You've got a total of, I think that's 18, 20 SEC games. So I don't. The schedules are gone. If I can share my screen as well, or maybe I'm not going to. But so I mean, you look at it. You start off at number 17, Mississippi State. Okay, you got Alabama at home, Auburn at home. I believe it's Auburn at home, which is big. I think that game's going to have to be loud, or it is going to have to be loud if you want a chance. Auburn's been dismantling teams this year. It's number 17, Mississippi State, number 5, Auburn, or number 5, Alabama, number 2, Auburn. And then you've got Vanderbilt on the road. Hopefully Miles Studi goes off, has a game, right? But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of your first 10 games are against ranked opponents. How many of these are in the top 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them, 5 of your 10 first games are ranked against the top 10. Unbelievable. RL says, I can see the women's team losing maybe 4 games this year, but could turn it on postseason to make a deep run. Yeah, RL, I'm convinced that this women's basketball team is going to make a deep postseason run, like a very deep one. I think Dawn has figured out just kind of what she has in her team. Now they have to avoid the hype. But the way that they've been playing recently and just taking better shots, and the way that they've evolved from the start of the season has been wonderful. It's been awesome. So yeah, I foresee this women's team probably going back to the Final Four. They're one of the best teams. Watch out for Notre Dame. Watch out for Texas. Again, we're going to see what this women's team's got in this month of January. We will see what they've got in the month of January for sure. Let's see. Our EXO is hoping for the deep run. There will be drama on the horizon with any loss. Yeah, and I don't know. Again, we're gonna see what this team is made of with this early SEC schedule. Again, they're certainly gonna be tested, and again starts with Missouri tomorrow, but we'll have to see. Not Texas. Already tired of Texas. Yeah, I know. Then winning with the Illinois loss yesterday, I think you can add another color of orange. I saw this tweet somewhere. I forget who it was. Might have been Kendall. But with the Illinois loss yesterday, you can chalk up another color of orange to distaste. You got Texas, you got burnt orange, you got Illinois now, you got Tennessee, you got Clemson. So Florida, I mean, you can make a case for Florida's orange too. It's also gross. Nasty. But yeah, I don't know. It's certainly not too kind of the color orange, as everyone likes to say it down south. But yeah, put a bow on the show and everything. Yeah, absolutely. But put a bow on the show. That Citrus Bowl was obviously not the way you would have hoped it to go by any means. But again, you still carry a lot of that momentum. We'll see what opt-outs or not what opt-out, but we'll see what, what guys are going to actually hit the portal. I think you retain a lot of your team, and we'll continue to put a bow on football with this show as we go along. But, not necessarily the way you want to end it. Again, there was a lot of drama, a lot of intrigue, and a lot of different, ways that game could have gone. And, at the end of the day, I think, South Carolina wants to die on the sword of that they're going to stick up for the guys next to them. And obviously with Nick Keeman-Ware's opt-out, wasn't completely the story there in Orlando, but one guy does not make or does not speak for the whole Army. But again, Demetrius Knight saying, he wants his teammates to know that, he gave everything out there. So, and I'm going to close it with this. The world, be more like Demetrius Knight, stand up for the people next to you, especially with this, everything happening in the world. And just, be nicer in the new year, shall we? But yes, again, I'm running out of gas here, talking in circles here at the tail end of this. But yes, appreciate everyone tuning in. This has been the walkthrough. Good to be back again. Probably going to be a Tuesday or Wednesday show, just depending on what the guys are doing. Matt and Alex, depending on if we're going to run them consecutively or if we're going to switch up the nights. Again, just depends on everything in the springtime. But check out the walkthrough Tuesday, Wednesday nights this spring coming at you. Going to be a whole lot of fun. Going to have plenty more guests. And obviously with the off season comes spring football. Going to have some good football guests on during the spring, and also obviously continue the basketball guests the basketball guests as well. So going to be a fun little spring, and hope everyone's New Year and holidays were great. As mine were back home. I'm freezing cold, so hopefully there's some more in store for me when I return to Columbia. But appreciate everyone tuning into this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Again, Happy New Year's, and stay safe out there. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week.